From Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premier podcast. Damn you, Hollywood! And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
I used up all my good ones the other day when I broke Mark on the TV party intro.
I'm not even looking at you anymore.
Good call. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Damn You Hollywood with our brand new title card. I'd like to thank one of our panelists this evening for that, Alexis Hejna. Thank you very much, ma'am. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad you liked it.
For those of you who are only listening, sucks to be you.
True. Another voice you heard.
Title card. I listen on a regular podcast.
And the other voice you heard there is that of David Wright from the Canadian office, because we are talking we're doing a double shot tonight. There are two streaming movies we decided on, one of which from last week or so was Pixar's Turning Red, the other of which is the Disney Plus abomination, Cheaper by the Dozen, and we will get to that. Oh, yes, we will.
Yeah, by we, he means Mark.
But since this was the Canadian Pixar film, and as one of my brothers said when I told him that was one of the descriptions about Pixar, he said, "Oh, why'd they have to make Canadians real?"
All right.
I have a weird family.
Does your brother subscribe to the Cartoon Network theory that Canada just doesn't exist?
No. I don't know why that struck into his head, but it did, and he's again. I love my brothers. They're weird. We're all weird. So David is with us. David, how the heck are you?
I'm good, thanks. I was listening to Weird Al's Canadian Idiot on the way in home from work today, so I'm pumped and ready to go.
Isn't that your national anthem?
I prefer Canada's Really Big by the Arrogant Worms. Check it out.
I'm taking my kids to go see Weird Al this summer. He's
now
coming to
that-
Clearwater.
There you go.
That is some quality parenting.
I know. So yeah, we decided to do we were going to do Turning Red actually before I went on vacation and just ran out of time, so we figured, okay, let's book it for when I come back, but then we need another streaming movie because even though we probably, especially with the four of us here, we could have absolutely gone an hour and a half without having to add a second movie and not have money, but I am if nothing, a slave to structure and consistency. So I have we got to pick a second
prison.
Yes. A jail, thank you. A jail.
I'm aware. I do that to tweak you.
So yeah, when I saw that they were going to do the Cheaper by the Dozen thing, I'm like, look, it's one of those like cheap content things. Like people will talk about it. It's just like the Home Sweet Home Alone thing. I have a need to do them to be part of the conversation that's happening with streaming film. But let's face it, three of us are doing this against our will, and one of us is fleeing like Jacob. I mean, that's how bad this movie is. So
yeah, well, one of us has to get on the road for an 8-hour drive to a convention tomorrow.
We all envy you. All right, so no table setting tonight. We're going to jump right into Turning Red, the plot synopsis here, and I'm going to whip through this so that we can all have a chance to talk, because there's a lot to talk about with this movie, even though I think we all landed on its mid-tier Pixar, but we'll get to that momentarily. In 2002, Maylin Mei Lee is a 13-year-old Chinese-Canadian girl living in Toronto. She helps take care of the family's temple dedicated to their ancestor Sun Yi and works to make her strict, overprotective mother Ming proud. Mei hides her personal interests from Ming, such as the fact that she and her best friends, Miriam, Priya, and Abby, are fans of the boy band Four Town. Ming discovers Mei's crush on the local convenience store clerk and unintentionally embarrasses Mei in public, including in front of the school bully Tyler. Yes.
Yeah. How many? I'll say when she does that, how many of us just sat back and thought, well, I officially retract about 90% of the shit I said about my parents.
Yeah. Which leads Mei to have a vivid nightmare involving red pandas. The next morning, Mei is transformed into a large red panda like you do. Metaphor. She hides from her parents and discovers that she only transforms when she is in a state of high emotion, like the Hulk. Ming initially believes Mei is experiencing her first period, but finds out the truth when she further embarrasses Mei at school, causing Mei to transform and run home. Ming and Jin, May's father, explained that Sun Yi was granted his transformation to protect her daughters, and every female family member since has also transformed when they came of age. This has become inconvenient, to say the least, and dangerous, so the red panda spirit must be sealed in a talisman by a ritual on the night of the red moon. The next is in a month's time. May's friends discover her transformation but take a liking to it, and May finds that concentrating on them helps control the red panda within her. Ming allows May to resume her normal life, but refuses to let May attend Four Town's upcoming concert. The girls secretly raise money for the tickets at school, exploiting the popularity of May's red panda form. May agrees to attend Tyler's birthday party as the red panda to cover the last ticket. At the party, May discovers the concert will actually be on her ritual night. She becomes angry and attacks Tyler when he insults her family, scaring the other children. Ming discovers May's activities and accuses her friends of corrupting and taking advantage of her. May fails to come to her friend's defense because she's ashamed and afraid to stand up to her mother. May's grandmother, Wu Tang, ain't nothing to mess with, and her aunts come to assist her ritual to Ming's dismay. As May prepares herself, Jin finds videos she took of herself and the red panda with her friends, and she tells her she should not be ashamed of this side of her. During the ritual, as May's red panda form is about to be sealed, May decides to keep her powers, like you do. She abandons the ritual to attend the concert at the Sky Dome with her friends, who forgive May for her actions at the party and discover Tyler is also a Four Town fan, because of course he is. During her escape from the temple, May inadvertently damages her mother's talisman. Enraged, Ming transforms into a kaiju-sized red panda because, Japan. And disrupts the concert, intending
China.
to take May back by force. May and Ming argue about May's independence, and May accidentally knocks her mother out, like you do. The rest of the family arrive to help.
With
the
the
women
power
break
of twerking.
yeah, buddy. The women break their talisman to use the red panda forms to help drag Ming into her new ritual circle. May's friends in Four Town join in singing to complete the ritual, sending May, Ming, and the other women to the astral plane to join Doctor Strange. May reconciles with Ming and helps her mend her bond with Wu, whom Ming accidentally scarred in anger at some point years ago before stealing her red panda form. The other women conceal their red pandas and new talisman, but May decides to keep hers, and Ming accepts that she is finding her own path. Later, May and her family help raise money to repair the Sky Dome. Ming and May's relationship has improved, and May balances her temple duties with her red panda is now an attraction. With time with friends now, including Tyler. All right, Alexis, what did you think of this mid-tier Pixar flick?
It is mid-tier, but mid-tier Pixar, I would still say, is a few notches above what most other animation companies would be mid-tier. This was still a very enjoyable movie. The first third of it was kind of hard to get into, and I knew you guys were going to probably think the same thing, considering that I'm the only person in this group who actually went through being a 13-year-old girl. At least I think that's the case. I don't know.
What if I identified
as
a 13-year-old girl? How dare you, madam? Don't assume my pronouns for me. Please continue.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mark, for doing that, so I didn't have to.
Back at you.
I like that this movie.
Hey, Alexis, don't get on my case, okay? At least I didn't play a 20-minute Dave Chappelle skit.
Very true. Anyways, no. This was a very well done film. Like I said, the first third's very hard to get into, but once the transformation takes place, the movie actually has a very good pace. It's very keeps it going pretty well. I love how well defined the characters are, especially May's friends. Looking at them in the trailer, you think these are going to be just bland kids and everything, but they are enjoyable. They're fun. They're well defined. I even like. It's a little thing that I don't know if you guys noticed, but Priya, the Indian friend, when we first see her, she's reading what is obviously a Twilight knockoff. And throughout the movie, you actually see her doing little things like sleeping like this. And it's like she's obsessed with vampires. And that's just, I remember noticing them like that is so adorable and a really great attention to a character detail. I love that. I understand a lot with May, the idea of wanting to respect your parents but wanting to be your own person, whether or not you were a 13-year-old girl or not. This is something I think we all identify with, the idea of finally branching out and finding our own identities. And again, setting this in 2002, I honestly think was a really smart idea. It helps for a lack of better words, kind of give it a timeless feel to it. I love that she's got the Tamagotchi, and I love how the Tamagotchi is used at the end to seal one of the pandas. That's really cute. The use of the boy band music. Yeah, I remember being obsessed with boy bands when I was younger. I had a Backstreet Boys CD, I fully confess. So I know where the girls are going from with this whole how badly they want to go to this concert and see these guys. I get that. And I was worried the movie was going to fall into a lot of cliches that it didn't. When May is essentially exploiting her panda self, I was worried that was going to blow up in her face and she was going to feel ashamed later. It's like, I never should have done that. And I mean, that was going to be part of the lesson, not her mother's overprotective making her ashamed. But it doesn't. The movie celebrates that's part of who she is, and she gets to embrace that. And that's not something we get to see a lot in movies nowadays, and I really like that message. So animation was great. We see a lot of visual effects and facial expressions that are very anime based, which was a little off-putting, I think, at first. But again, after the transformation with the panda scene, it starts to get a little bit more, not normal, but it just feels like it flows better after that. I think that they really did take some chances with doing some of those crazy anime eyes, and just you get that one facial expression of her underneath the bed drawing the convenience store guy, and just that weird little smile, which is very cute. The director for this took a lot of chances with that kind of stuff, and I think it works. Again, this is not going to stand up with the likes of Toy Story or Ratatouille or even Cars for that matter, but for what Pixar does, I'm genuinely impressed.
Dave, I want to go to you next, but if you wouldn't mind just sort of weighing in on the point that Robert and I talked about after we were done with last night's review. We were just kind of chit-chatting, and we got on the topic of Turning Red. And one of the things we talked about was in the alternate universe where there's no unnamed virus of unknown origin, and Pixar is allowed to continue to release films in theaters without obstacles, and they maintain their cachet. There was a question of, would this have drawn an audience? Robert and I'm going to put it to you very directly. Robert and I said, this feels like another episode of the Pixar show. Like, for me, I'm not totally unhappy. I get the Pixar people are not thrilled about this, and I feel bad for them because they take a lot of pride in what they're doing, and they want the feature spot on the big screen, and I get that. But I think in terms of quality, there's feature quality, and then there's the Pixar show quality. And the Pixar show quality, I'm not crying that it's on Disney Plus, and I just kind of want to get your thoughts where you landed vis-a-vis Turning Red. Another episode of the Pixar show, or do you think this is up there with the feature quality movies?
I'd say it's absolutely feature quality. Like as Alexis mentioned, the animation is top notch. The way they're able to do the anime googly eyes in CG and make it work is really impressive. And it's Pixar. Like they've got this down, better than a lot of studios have.
You think this would have drawn a crowd?
Yes, it would have drawn a crowd. The size of said crowd, I don't know. Like, I don't see it as being like a huge mega hit, but I think it would have drawn an audience and would have probably done okay.
Well, to be clear, when Pixar hits, they hit $1 billion, and I think that's what I'm trying to differentiate. There's the mid-level Pixar that doesn't quite hit the billion, and then there's the $1 billion pictures. Go ahead, Robert, and then back to David.
I was just going to say, like, if you need another point of comparison, if we're hypothetically dealing with this movie getting a full theatrical release, does this do appreciably better than Luca did, hypothetically? If we're talking if all we're talking about is box office returns.
I think Luca would have done better than this. But also keep in mind what was being released at the same time. With all due respect to Turning Red, if it was released into theaters right now where we've got the Batman and other movies like that in theaters, it was not going to draw enough of the movie-going audience.
Like it would have been released during, Spider-Man No Way Home still being a force in the theaters. And I think there would be a lot of market competition.
Well, hang on. Turning Red was always slated for March 11th. It never had an earlier release date. The relevant point that Alexis made was the only movie that it's competitive with right now is Batman, but is not the Batman audience different from the Turning Red audience.
I
And
think
either way,
the Spider-Man audience.
well, the Spider-Man's out of the theaters now, I think.
Well, I think we can agree that at a bare minimum, it would have gotten to number 2, and the Jujutsu Kaisen movie would not have climbed
Right.
to the number 2 spot domestically.
Well, I don't want to take away from David's time. So, I wanted to kind of have that thought exercise about where do you think this lands box office wise if we lived in that universe. But what did you think of the movie, Dave?
Well, there were 10 bits, so 10 out of 10, perfect.
Okay.
No, just kidding. For those of you that don't know, Timbits are donut holes sold at Tim Hortons, like Canada's national donut breakfast coffee chain. It's kind of a national icon and institution.
Let's go in here. And how well did this movie represent your country?
I'd say pretty good. Like I haven't spent much time around Toronto. Definitely not as a 13-year-old Chinese Canadian girl in 2002.
Didn't we all go through that Chinese Canadian girl phase?
Yeah, I was there more like in 1992 as like I don't know a 5-year-old on a trip or something. But yeah, as for Canadian life, I think it seemed to be pretty good. Like the school seemed like a Canadian school, like getting as well as I can remember. It's kind of hard because there's not really this sort of exotic, unique Canadianness to Canada in many ways.
Not only that,
when you stack it next to the U.S.,
Toronto it might as well be Minneapolis. Minneapolis. Like I've been to Toronto, other than because it's an Arctic tundra, they have to build their malls underground like mole people. It seems like any other American city. There's nothing like uniquely Canadian about it.
Yeah, it's more in the little things like the use of the metric system instead of imperial, the presence of Tim Hortons, greater emphasis on hockey.
Right, it's not like Quebec, which might as well be France.
Well, that would be that's basically French. Yeah, more French. But the money was Canadian money. That was kind of funny. Like I love the scene where like they're raking in the money and you just see the loonies and toonies falling. Loonies being our $1 coin and toonie being our $2 coin.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of fun to see in a movie, but it's just kind of in just how normal everything looked. That kind of just made it more authentically Canadian in a way. Like May goes to school wearing a toque when she's worried about her red hair. From the panda transformation. I think it does a good job. But I mean, just Canada's just a place. It's with people, it's.
What'd you think of the story?
But I thought the story was pretty good. Like, yes, as mentioned, I don't, most of us are not a 13-year-old Chinese Canadian girl going through adolescence with this metaphor, but that's kind of one of the cool things about cinema is you can sort of experience vicariously other perspectives and lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, even though I've never personally had that experience. I can kind of understand in parts what it's like, like having your parents embarrass you at school. I mean, I've never had my mom bring tampons to school their pads weren't they? But not ever having to be a girl and have to deal with that. I can still say that's probably really, really, really embarrassing. Like May would probably rather have died than experienced that or any of the sort of the tiger mommy things she does in the convenience store with the guy she has a crush on. So,
I actually called my folks and talked to them about that scene. I was like, and I actually said, you two may have screwed up sometimes, but at least thank God you never, brought pads to school or humiliated whoever I had a crush on. And my dad actually said, if we humiliated anyone you had a crush on, you never would have found out about it.
Yeah. So I like that I could sort of try and get into her shoes and understand where she's coming from, even though not having those exact experiences, I certainly know a lot about being an adolescent boy, but I thought that wasn't really that much of an issue. I could still follow along with what the issues were and and the stakes. And like very early on when it was her hanging out with her friends, of like, oh, okay, this is definitely directed by someone who has lived this life. It's very similar to sort of Bend It Like Beckham.
Okay.
If any of you seen that movie, which is
another
sort of like a first generation immigrant from an Asian country in a Western country sort of struggling between the old world and the new, and coming into their own and noticing boys and all that kind of stuff, just with soccer instead of turning into a red panda. I was a little bit confused when they actually had when she's trying to hide her transformation and her mom's like, the red flower has bloomed, and her dad just freaks out. It's like, okay, so I thought this was like a metaphor for getting your first period, but then her response is, oh, are you having your first period? Oh no, I'm turning into a panda. So it's like, okay, so you have the metaphor and the thing it's metaphoring, and I'm kind of like, which way is this going here?
Right.
But I'm like, okay.
In case the audience missed the obvious, we made it obvious.
Yeah, there's only so much euphemisms I can work in here.
I put some super text in your super text, so you can super text while you text.
Yeah. They have not a lot of subtext there, but anyway, yeah, it's at its core, it's adolescence, right? May, learning that she's becoming her own person. She's sort of moving away from her mom, as all teenagers do, and her mom having to do the whole accepting that her daughter is becoming her own person and isn't going to live her life every single way she wants her to, and being okay with that. I just got a couple more points in here. One thing that confused me is when they explain the origins of the red panda transformation. It's like, okay, so you're looking to defend your village from invading armies, and the animal you choose to transform into is a red panda.
Yeah.
You're like, I've seen red pandas. They're like this long. They're like, a big cat size thing. Like you could probably find something a bit more ferocious. I mean, I don't know, maybe they're like honey badgers, and
no,
if they lack in size, they make up for in ferocity.
Not really.
No, they always seem pretty docile. But
maybe Sun Yi decided that she needed to distract the Imperial armies with her cuteness.
Yeah, I mean, still a 10-foot tall red panda is still something pretty formidable, but still, it's kind of the Transformers problem. It's like, we're fighting a war here. It's like, I know, we need to transform into cars. What are the other guys transforming into? Fighter jets, battle tanks, warships. It's like, I wonder who's going to have the higher chance of winning this one.
What do we send at them? The Volkswagen.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, that was just me being me, the way my brain works. But anyway, I got behind it in the end. One thing I have to shout out is awesome dad in this movie. Like I love May's dad. He's in the background for most of it, but like the scene where he finds the video of the girls dancing around to Four Town and doing the panda thing, and he just comes to her room and just says, "You're like, hey, this is kind of cool." And she's like, "Yeah, but I almost hurt someone." It's like, we've all got good and darkness in us, and part of growing up is learning how to deal with them both. Like he came with like the wise words of a parent that she needed right then. Plus, he makes steam buns, and steam buns are amazing. So, my most favorite character by default in the film. But yeah, it wasn't a high stakes fate of the world thing. But yeah, I just thought it was a nice story about going through adolescence, realizing yourself with the metaphor of red pandas for that thing. So yeah, like overall, I liked it.
I liked the movie just fine. My kids were also, it was nice. We had a good time watching it. It did not have quite the staying power for me or the emotional resonance of Soul or Onward.
Yeah, it's not that category, but
yeah, it felt very Luca to me from what I remember of that movie. I like a story that's about a young person starting to try on different hats and differentiate themselves from their parents. That's ultimately what Turning Red is about. It's about this girl who is trying to find her way out of the family and her own identity. I think people are very much caught up in the period metaphor. That's certainly something that we have to readdress and talk about, because there's been this bit of a Twitter backlash about it, as there is with all things now.
There's a Twitter backlash about everything. Sorry, go ahead.
Because heaven forbid people talk about what is a totally normal part of a woman's reproductive system.
No,
it only affects about half the population.
No, people, all women are dirty, and they're dirty because of their periods, dirty and impure. Now listen.
That's Mark Radulich at Radulich
and stay tuned for the next podcast I do with my 11-year-old daughter. So
what did she think of the movie? Actually, I'm kind of surprised you didn't want to bring her on for a guest.
She's asleep. But she neither one of them were moved as they have been in the past with other movies that we've talked about. They thought it was nice. They enjoyed the time that we spent watching it, and she liked it a little bit more because she could identify with the girl more so than my son could. My son was like, the best part of this is the kaiju fight at the end, and I'm like, spoken like a true 8-year-old boy.
Yeah, that's a totally fair
like
assessment.
Son.
Yeah, totally fair assessment for an 8-year-old boy. For that
Thank
movie.
you, David.
Yeah.
But my
That will
daughter
probably be his assessment of this movie in 20 years because he is your son.
Hey, when I was 12, I was railing against the massive injustice that Batman Forever did not win Best Picture at the Oscars.
Anyway, I just want to say, and then I'll throw it over to you, Robert. I want to go back to the line I said before about like this feels like another episode of the Pixar show. Pixar kind of finds a through thread, a theme, and they kind of write around, and then they create a gimmick. It's like first theme, then gimmick to talk about that theme, and then they write a story around both of those things. That is sort of the winning formula. It sometimes works better than others. And for me, this felt like Luca. This felt of the last like 4 or 5 of these, like Coco was stellar, Soul was stellar, Onward was better than good, but not stellar. And then, like I said, Luca and Turning Red were about the same for me, and they were both about average. You brought up Ratatouille. Ratatouille is fantastic, but it definitely also feels like high end of the Pixar, the Pixar show. And it's a nice, well told, easily relatable story. I don't think you have to be a 13-year-old girl to get it. We've all gone through adolescence. We've all, in some way, shape, or form, tried to differentiate ourselves from our parents and rebel. We've had parents who, to one degree or another, intercede in our lives, and and then we buck against that, and that's all in this movie, and it was all represented fairly well. I can't recall off the top of my head too many issues with the craft or story. It just, when we get the cheaper by the dozen, Robert and I were talking about how they just seem to be making. There was a conversation that took place between Robert and I years ago, and we talked about it off air last night about how we don't like to do television. Television tends to be written for the lowest common denominator for the widest audience, and it's not really worth my time, and it's not worth Robert's time. And then peak television happens, Sopranos, Oz, The Wire, The Shield, and it's like, okay, well, so there's a segment of television that's really written at a high end, and in many cases written better than most movies, but the rest of it is just trash. And I would not call Turning Red trash, but it definitely feels like on the end of sort of disposable television fare. Could I have there are event pictures within the Pixar library. You must go see this thing. It'll change your life. And then there's a movie I could see or not see. It doesn't really matter. And that's kind of what my takeaway from Turning Red was. It was a nice movie. It was a lovely movie. I think it was fairly well written. I don't remember having a tremendous amount of plot and craft issues, but it also felt somewhat disposable. I could give or take it. What did you think, Robert?
It was refreshing but good is sort of what I'd say. Like it was nice, it was different but good. Maybe not great, but
I wouldn't even say it was that different. There are any number of stories dealing with the same exact issue, some better, some worse. So for me, like I said, it's kind of average. Just average done well, I guess. What did you think, Robert?
This movie failed utterly to reach me on anything approximating an emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that's me or the film or whatnot, or what where the reality of that lies, I couldn't tell you how far we have to break that down. But it didn't. That said, it's a well-made movie. The animation is really nice. There's some beautiful texturing and layering. There's way too many people who got hung up on the mouths in this thing.
Oh yeah, it did remind me a lot of Aardman animation, the big teeth.
Yeah,
and the
that got brought up.
Art style with the bean-shaped mouths.
Yeah.
But by the way, Aardman animation is amazing. Like that.
Of course.
Yeah, just to clarify that for the world.
Yeah. Again, that was the thing that was brought up as people kind of going, the bean-shaped mouths are kind of lazy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they aren't. I'm saying if you look at some of the shots from this movie and that's your takeaway, you are not looking at the right things.
It is overused. No,
100%. Like, I'm not here defending the bean mouths as a general rule. I'm here saying if you looked at this movie and went, boy, that's lazy, and didn't look at the layering that went in and the light sourcing and the shadowing and the shading, and again, the texture effects that they got, like, you completely missed the forest for the one tree there, buddy. So that's all really good. It took me a while to realize one of my problems with the craft of this thing.
Okay.
This movie is said has been mentioned in 2002. And yet no one sounds like they're in 2002. Everyone talks like they're from now.
I will admit, I don't think 2002 girls were saying OMG. I think that's more of a modern thing.
Yeah,
but
no one talked about being on the grind. There's a bunch of these just like idiosyncratic linguistic tics that change over time because language does. But if you're writing a period piece, you have to then understand the language that was used. And so having people set in 2002 talk like they're from 20 years in the future, I think it caused a pretty massive disconnect in my head. So I do think that's an issue that goes to the craft of this thing. The bit at the end with the kaiju panda. I'm going to say this as charitably as I can. That feels like a studio note.
Like they didn't have an ending, or they didn't have an ending with a wow factor, and they were like, you got to have a fight scene or something.
You got to have something that makes this pop. So, hey, 20-foot panda.
Mm-hmm.
I did like the thing between May and her father, though, when her mom shows up as the giant panda. He's like, I told you she was big. And she's like, that's what you meant by big. That was funny.
Yeah, how does that explain the small scratch on her grandmother's side? These are not to scale.
There are some funny gags in this thing. I mean, we mentioned it before, but when May initially says, yeah, I guess I'm having my first period, her parents' reaction to it. Because her mother goes, it's happening, and the dad immediately just panics and like spills everything he's doing in the kitchen and runs out of the house. Like, which is the appropriate reaction to your children turning into teenagers. Like, we were all teenagers. They suck. I'm with you, David, in that I liked the dad character. He was treated as a legitimate character, and I'm going to fix my camera in a second.
Yeah.
He was treated as a legitimate character. He was not just a henpecked, mopey guy in the background. He contributed things.
He was also not a dope, which was nice.
Yeah, they gave him some respect. He wasn't featured prominently because it's mostly his story about mom and daughter, but it was nice that dad had his moment to shine.
Yeah,
I did like the post-credit scene with him dancing. Again, very cute.
Yeah, he was treated with, again, the respect to do a legitimate character. More on that when we talk about the next movie. I'm with you guys. This is fairly lower mid-tier Pixar for me. It's on par with Luca, and I think which of those two you prefer is largely down to individual, what speaks to you as an individual. Didn't do a whole lot for me emotionally, but it's very well made. It is beautiful. It's mostly well written. Again, my gripes are relatively minor. I think the last thing I need to say about the writing, there's enough people who are, other than myself, who have looked at this and said this does a good job at, conveying the issues of, what it feels like to be butting up against your parents like this, that I'm going to just assume that, it not connecting with me in any sort of meaningful way is largely about me and not about not a flaw in quality. So it's a solid film. I don't know, again, where it ranks in the Pixar pantheon. Lower mid-tier would be where I'd put it, but there's a little bit of room.
It's better than Cars 2 and The Good Dinosaur.
Yes, well,
I'm not
everything is better than those two movies.
I'm not sure about The Good Dinosaur, but I haven't rewatched that either, so.
Okay, if you want to have that conversation, I think we have a little bit of time for it. The Good Dinosaur looked nicer than this movie. When we reviewed it, Robert, you'll remember the photorealism in The Good Dinosaur was up there with like Moana. It looked absolutely gorgeous. And it might just be because you're talking about a cityscape as opposed to landscapes. And so one lends itself to look prettier than the other, even if it's the same quality. And that, to me, is the only thing that makes The Good Dinosaur better than Turning Red. You remember we had a lot of problems with the Good Dinosaur.
I didn't say that. Look, Good Dinosaur has plenty of scars.
Mm-hmm.
That said, look, just in the issue of full candor, the Good Dinosaur made me cry. This did not.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, fair enough. All right, I just want to address this since we do have time in the craft review before we get into anything else. Alexis, the only backlash that I saw was that because this is a children's movie and it talked about periods that children have, but apparently we don't ever want to talk about it in this crazy country we live in, or the three of us live in. Dave lives on Mars.
I live in the country this film is actually set in. Thank you. Wrong side of the country, but yeah.
Plus, Canada is starting to join us in the crazy side of things. So
fair enough.
Welcome. We have cookies.
My point being, like, I that seems to be the only thing that I've heard. I don't know how many other like backlashes and problems people have had with this. I know people aren't loving it, but it is frustrating that you as a writer, as an artist who who have a vision and a point of view, and you want to talk about things, universal experiences, which Pixar is typically good at, but God forbid it even approaches. If your film even approaches anything having to do with sex and the puberty process, and it's a children's movie, people go apoplectic as if like we have to keep it a secret from people, and that's asinine. Like, I don't know how to address this at this point. Jason and I, a little ways back, got into a big discussion about putting warnings before movies, and I was okay with it as long as you don't touch the content of the movie. If you want to throw up a warning that says we're going to talk about periods, if you can't handle that, please go watch the Church Channel. But it does seem ridiculous that we even have to do that because some people get this worked up over this kind of thing, and I just want to get good to sort of round the horn people's takes on the period Twitter backlash.
Not against what you're saying, Mark. Netflix does something similar. For example, I just watched Shrek 2 on Netflix the other day, and it said something like, rated PG for so-and-so, one mild drug reference, which I assume has to be the catnip joke, because I can't think of any other drug reference in that movie. But that's not a bad thing. But yeah, we still live in a country where women's feminine hygiene products are still taxed heavily, even though it is a completely natural part of our lives. And I'm sick of it.
Is it like a luxury tax? Like, you don't really need these things. Is that what the implication you're driving at?
More or less.
Oh,
yeah. The things that
wow, it does suck to be a woman.
Need once a month. Majority of lawmakers, or mostly men, I'm sorry. Sorry. No, there's no way. There's no other way around it. I don't want to go off the feminist wagon here, but it's like,
you're stating the truth is not a controversial statement.
Look, you're not complaining about not getting paid. You can talk about this. It's fine. I won't cut you off.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm not getting paid either.
No, I'm sorry, David. But there is okay. It really is disturbing how so many people in this country look at periods and everything. They're like, ew, that's gross. That's disgusting. I mean, I get the idea that when you see the tampon commercials, you make the liquid blue. I get that.
I'm not for blue liquid? Why am I just finding this out now?
I'm with you. I think they should go full
why
Carrie.
do women keep on going around pouring blue liquid onto ads? Like, why do they need to do this?
I don't understand how women's bodies work. Why is everything blue? No,
I love that line from Family Guy. You make it blue. You show us whatever you want, but you make it blue.
No, I agree with Alexis. We should go full Carrie or The Shining and just blood everywhere. A woman's period should be like a Gallagher concert. Just, sledge-o-matic.
Like I said, it's just annoying because it's a completely healthy part of any woman's life, and it is so annoying. I mean, but again, we also still live in a country that is doing the pink tax. You are familiar with that, Mark?
What is the pink tax?
In all honesty, right now, I'm just imaging Stanley Kubrick directing a tampon commercial.
I really need someone build the thing where you slide dimensions, because I need to find the one where that happened.
There
Sorry,
there is no reality where Stanley Kubrick makes a commercial at all.
I agree with Robert on that one, but I still can't get that mental image out of my head now.
Sorry.
So Stanley Kubrick, who is our lead ad rep, what is your pitch for this period commercial? Well, I'm thinking blood everywhere, raining blood, and we'll have Slayer playing in the background.
Maybe something in the 19th century. No, not that kind of period. I'm sorry. So pink tax.
And the lead
I was paying attention.
And the lead actress has to wear a mask.
The pink tax basically taxes. Okay, products that both men and women use, like razors and things like that, are the pink tax taxes the women's products more, even though it is basically because, again, the men in government tend to think that while they needed to shave their faces, when women shave, it's a luxury. So, and I'm sorry, this is a standard here in the United States, and it is really annoying. And it's just, I want it to stop. I am tired of things that women do being considered ewy.
I do find that interesting that somewhere out there, there's a debate happening among congressmen going, this is a luxury, this is a necessity, and where they land on those things and how idiotic it really is. I would actually be fascinated by that. I wouldn't. It's just like, I feel like I would come home and feel the need to walk into the woods to live deliberately when it was over, but I kind of want to be there for it at least once.
I swear to God, one of these days, I just want the wives of these congressmen to stop shaving and stop using feminine hygiene products and everything, and be like, oh, so it's a luxury, so I can go without it. Then let's see what happens.
You don't mind if I stay in the couch, then that's fine.
Jeff Fox really put. You ever rub a woman's leg who hasn't shaved in a bit? One direction, smooth as a baby's bottom. Other direction, severe tire damage.
So David, do you have any reaction beyond what's been said already to the stupid Twitter backlash with the period? I mean, I think we're all on the same page. People need to get lives, but I just curious what other insights there might be.
How desperate is Twitter getting? Well,
I mean, it's not like Twitter. Hang on. You can't blame the social media site. When we say Twitter, we mean people on Twitter.
What? Yes. Ted Cruz only does so many stupid things, and Trump's not on Twitter anymore. They got to find something to bitch about.
Well, and they don't let you bitch about Biden the way they should, but that's a whole.
Oh my God!
Look. When I say Twitter again, I don't mean the company Twitter.
Thank you.
I mean, like, how desperate is the scene on Twitter, where we're trying so desperately to generate engagement and generate, because there are people who do this professionally. You have to get engagement, you have to get clicks, you have to get likes, retweets. Again, any form of engagement with whatever crap you put out. That we've gotten to the point where we're complaining about a 5-minute segment in a Pixar movie about the menstrual cycle.
All right.
This is insanity.
So I just did a quick Google search. I Googled Turning Red Parents, and the first thing that came up is a Vox article. Now, John Brodigan, the previous Freak Boy, and one of my few friends from New York, the last time I addressed a Vox article on social media was a few years ago, and he said, for shame, sit in the corner and think about what you've done. But for the sake of brevity and time, I'm going to read from Vox. Please forgive me. Pixar's Turning Red is an unlikely culture war battleground. Turning Red's biggest offense may be that it's just unapologetic weirdness. What makes a controversy? In the case of Turning Red's Pixar's...
the answer to that question is Vox.
Delightful new film about a Toronto teenager discovers that she can turn into a huge red panda. It seems no one can make up their minds, but the quest to pick any objection to this quirky little movie might have conscripted Turning Red into a larger, ongoing conversation about parents, kids, and the culture war. The vast majority
is the culture war.
Everything is the culture war. The vast majority of the film's audience seems to adore its main character, with her proud, fanish hobbies and her loyal Geek Squad friends, and they've been loudly celebrating Turning Red's unique elements. In its early 2000s Toronto setting, its celebration of teenage girlhood, and especially its thoughtful depiction of a child grappling with the complicated issues of family, community, and repressed history. But the buzz around the movie these days is since its March 11th release has been tinged with drama and might well give you the impression that Turning Red is Pixar's most controversial film since maybe ever. While that's probably not true, the dust up around Turning Red keeps gaining attention and going viral, maybe less because lots of people are mad than because the things a few people are mad about are just kind of weird. The controversies, such as they are, range from claims that this film isn't relatable. Really? This film isn't relatable to insistent discomfort with the depiction of a young woman in puberty and a child having autonomy and the very reality of, yes, sometimes cringeworthy 13-year-old girls. All right, I'm going to stop right there, David.
Just stop.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that fifth-tier online newspapers that have hired people who have no journalistic qualifications straight out of college are trying to generate content.
Okay, there is a legitimate. Hang on, there is a legitimate. Let me say this because I don't want to be unfair to the people who legitimately don't like this movie. Their opinion of the movie may be stupid, but like this is almost sounding like you guys don't think they exist, and I'm like, clearly they do.
I just don't think that this is like a national matter of importance in the world. This is like a handful of people
not
on Twitter.
Okay, no.
Look, if you work for any sort of publication whose name starts with a V, you have radically messed up your life.
Gee, what else are you talking about, Variety? I mean, Robert.
Any number of them. I don't care what they are.
So there's a variety of these publications. Is that what you're saying? Oh, yes.
Bum.
Yeah.
I
don't get the soundboard. All right, fine.
My hands are folded.
It's like, where's Pinkie Pie when we need her?
I think there's two ways to look at this. One, yes, if you would like to kind of hit the low-hanging fruit, and I don't mean that in an insulting way, but if you want to hit the low-hanging fruit of this is a controversy for the sake of clicks and controversy, that there really is nothing here, I think that dismisses the legitimate claims of people who are like, I don't want to let my kid watch stuff about icky puberty. There's a time and a place for that. I'm the parent and I'll decide. I don't want to get off on a really ridiculous tangent because I don't know that much about it, but I mean, we have a situation going on here in Florida where they're trying to pass a law that says don't say gay in school because parents object. Some parents object here in Florida, and I'm sure elsewhere around the world, to teachers in the school system addressing the subject of homosexuality, the LGBTQI community in school.
Well, in fairness to that bill, it's also third grade and below.
Yeah. And the contention is I, the parent, will decide what, non-necessary school things my children should be exposed to, not you. I, the parent, should be in charge of that thing. And that is what they're trying to do with the bill. I'm not getting into the subtext of it where it's really just repression, but that's a whole other thing. My point is, speaking up for these parents, and I feel like I'm going to be the only one on this panel that will, they're looking at this thing and saying, hey, I just wanted to put on a nice 90-minute child feature to distract my kids for a little while. Don't get into shit I don't feel like talking to them about yet.
Well, I would say, like, kids of that age, they're not going to know what a maxi pad is in the first place.
To be clear, I don't feel that way. I put the Wu-Tang Clan in front of my kids.
Yeah. I realize that part.
But I'm playing devil's advocate.
Like when you're like, I don't know, under the age of 10, I think a lot of that stuff just goes over your head anyway.
Sure.
Like people listen to I Think We're Alone Now, and they just think, oh, fun song. They don't realize it's about premarital sex or
right.
I was going to say, I think any child who watches this movie and doesn't know what a pad is or what a menstrual cycle is probably too young to really grasp what it is.
Hang on, I want to address that. And it's going
to go over their head.
I want to address that because that happened. So I was at work and I was really annoyed about this because I intended to watch this with my children. They found it on Disney Plus of all of their own, and they started watching it without me while I was at work. And I got a phone call from my wife who said, hey, your son came screaming out of the bedroom going, I don't understand. What's a period? He's almost 8.
And you really need to talk to his English teacher.
I'm
on fire tonight.
There's Pinkie Pie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I will continue to make bad jokes until I am appeased. So, Loki. Wait, don't steal my bit. So, second point, that the rating PG stands for parental guidance, as in if you are a parent or in any way concerned about what your child is entertainment that your child is shown, you might want to watch this first and make sure that it is okay for them. Buy yourself a movie ticket, go to the theater first.
Expecting parents to parent, David. That's a lot to ask.
Hang on.
If you're not willing to do the work, don't complain.
Because David brought up the fundamentally broken, stupid organization that is the MPAA and its rating system. Yeah, it exists for a reason, and I might take serious issue with some of the implementation and how profoundly stupid and corrupt it is. And there's any number of filmmakers who are happy to talk to you about that if you're so curious. But those do exist, and if you're willing to take the gamble on a PG movie, you reap the whirlwind, guys. Like 9 out of 10 times, that's probably not going to bite you in the butt. Now your wife has to say to your son, "No, it's part of a woman's body. Don't worry about it."
She had to talk with him about it. She explained what a period was, and my son went, "Wow, girls pee blood, gross," and then went about his business like a good 8-year-old boy should.
Need to remind you guys. They need to remind you guys. Raiders of the Lost Ark and Poltergeist are rated PG as well.
Yeah,
are they really?
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
They came out before the PG-13 rating existed.
They're pretty much the reason there is a PG. I mean,
Temple of Doom. That's more about Temple of Doom than Raiders, but yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not that cut and dry, but you can pretty much thank Steven Spielberg and George Lucas for giving us the PG-13 rating.
Spielberg, Lucas, and the guy who directed Gremlins, because Gremlins came out.
To sum this
Gremlins
up,
was PG too.
I don't begrudge people complaining that you feel like you can trust the Pixar brand, and then you see something like Turning Red, and there's stuff in it that you as a parent may be uncomfortable with. Again, that's not me and my wife, Wu-Tang Clan, ain't nothing to fuck with. But there are parents that are not, that do try to shelter their children as much as possible and are very much wanting to be in control and feeling like I should be able, for the $10 I'm spending a month on this, I should be able to trust my kids in front of Disney. And then something like this happened, like, Christ almighty, I can't, again, speaking up for these people, I can't feel comfortable unless I'm constantly reviewing things. And it's like, then, and who's got time for that sort of thing? And I made a joke, but it's really easy to say, well, why don't you scan and review everything you throw in front of your children? I don't know if you've ever raised children before, but, and have a job, but you run out of time after a while. I mean, it's not easy. So I feel like, to the professional protesters that took up the banner of this and decided to march against Disney, those people are assholes, and I don't want to address them. But to the parents who are legitimately like, can we not get a break? Can I not trust anything in this world? I kind of feel for them. That's my only point with this. I'll give you guys really quick, 10 words or less, and then we're gonna move on to the Rotten Tomatoes. Go ahead.
It's gonna get worse when Lightyear comes out. Supposedly, there's a scene in that with the same-sex kiss.
Yep, I've heard. The horror.
That was a sarcastic.
Yeah, I was hoping. It's like, brace yourself, guys.
Yay!
Twitter is about to hit the fan.
David, do you want to say anything else, or
not so much towards the parental thing, but just in general? It's like, art is about life and the human experience, and that's all of the human experience in all of its various facets. So if you want to make a movie about periods and adolescents and girls and stuff, why not? That's a thing, like I say, about half the population.
Well, if you want to be a commie hippie about it, that's fine, but some of us have standards, sir.
I also like to watch movies about people in big spaceships blowing each other up. There's to each their own.
Hey, look, I like to watch people in big spaceships just blowing each other. We all have our kinks. I'm just saying, so maybe not everything you have to show your kids. Go ahead, Robert. You have been dying to get the last.
No. I wasn't talking about show the kids. That was just more in general.
I'm just going to say that we all know that Mark has a very specific square footage requirement for the spaceships in those particular.
You want to get your final word here, Chucky?
I think you did an important thing distinguishing between the parents that might legitimately go, come on. Mm-hmm. And again, might have a legitimate gripe about things that are foisted on them as parents that they might not have been ready for, or that they don't want their children exposed to necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And the morons on Twitter who have nothing better to do with their lives. Those are two very distinct camps, and they do need to be differentiated. To the morons on Twitter, I'm not going to say what I want to say because I don't want to ding the video, but
We said enough when Pepe Le Pew was supposedly canceled.
Fair
indeed.
enough. All right, folks, here we go. Robert, I'm going to need you to put it up on screen. I'm going to read off my phone, but can you at least put the score up?
Hang on.
Here we go with the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
The critical review from Rotten Tomatoes is brought to you by Grammarly. For you listeners of Damn You Hollywood, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, it's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. You download Grammarly for free. All right, as you can see, I got it. It's up.
Ignore the laundry list of tabs open at the top of my screen.
Sweet Jesus, how is your computer not crashed?
Oh, that's only my second monitor.
Yeah,
Oh
I was going to
God.
say, that tells you more about Robert's brain than anything he's ever done on any podcast ever. So
Robert, I just got to ask, why so many YouTube?
Because I don't clean them as often as I should. This also lets me just tab back and forth between different things when I need them.
All right.
And at least two of those are long-running things that just run in the background, and depending on my mood, I choose which one I want.
Fair enough.
Now that we understand Robert's acute psychosis, Turning Red has a 95% critical score and a 70% a 73% audience score. One of the minor news points about that I was reading was this might be the biggest audience to critical score split in the entire Pixar canon, which I did find interesting. Someone was actually comparing it to Marvel in that sense. The critical consensus is heartwarming, humorous, beautifully animated, and culturally expansive. Turning Red extends Pixar's long list of family-friendly triumphs. All right. Let's go ahead and pull some of these reviews here. If you're wondering,
it is great to see high-level animation that was directed by a woman of color. It is great to see that kind of stuff finally becoming more accepted.
No doubt. Brett McCracken of the Gospel Coalition.
Are you only looking up? Okay,
I'm looking at everything, but
okay. I've got it up.
Okay, cool. Brett McCracken of the Gospel Coalition. You son of a bitch!
Hang on. So I can just refresh that. And
for all of its merits, the film ultimately advocates a wrong-headed central message under the guise of empowerment. Embrace who you are, even your reckless vices and dangerous impulses, and don't let anyone stop you. David, what do you think? Hang on, I want to hear from David real quick, because that was, I think, one of the more legitimate complaints about this is that, you know, this movie encourages kids to directly confront their parents, and I thought that was at least up for debate. What did you think?
Well, May never has like an antagonistic relationship with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that her mom does that she doesn't like, mostly her mom being overbearing and publicly embarrassing her, but like it was never screw you, mom. It was just like, mom, look, you just have to accept this is who I am, and I've got to be me. And again, May is 13, like she's going into adolescence, so this is that time where that happens,
right?
Good luck. We're all rooting for you, Mark.
Thanks.
You're about to go through.
I was talking to another parent today.
9 years.
So my wife and I are in the business of trying to make new friends, and we're talking to this one couple, and the father and I are trying to make a plan, and he's like, "Yeah, we're only available XYZ times because we have a 13-year-old pain in the ass at home," and I snorted.
Yeah, and it also kind of goes back to when May loses her temper at the party and like almost kills. Was it Tyler?
Yeah.
Like in her defense, Tyler's kind of a jerk.
If only she had That would have been a really sharp left turn content-wise, but I would have cheered.
Yeah, this would have become a very, very different movie. But yeah, Robert would have probably loved it.
Hey, look, I'm just saying, if you're selling me a story that's loosely a werewolf analog about, and it's titled Turning Red, and not a drop of blood is spilled by the end of it, I'm a little disappointed.
Okay, moving on. But her
We
father,
couldn't have
her
any
mother,
blood. There were already enough problems with the blood on the pads.
yeah, but it's blue anyway.
There we go.
Yeah, but moving on, it's back to the original point.
The sequel is turning
So
blue.
Loki.
Oh my God, let him finish.
Oh, Loki. Yeah. So like when her father goes to comfort her, he says like you need to learn the responsibility. Basically, saying you need to learn the responsibility that comes with this independence. That
Right.
you can do good things, but you can also do bad things.
I think that's a very valid point. Is that the film isn't just being you should to hell with your parents and be who you are. No. They are addressing self-actualization and creating your own identity while understanding that you're an asshole kid and you still need parental guidance. And I think the movie did actually a really good job of putting that forward, David.
Yeah, and also you need to develop personal discipline.
Yeah.
Like you are starting to become responsible for your own actions, so you need to be really careful what you do with your own actions.
So this next one's for the author of our Tick Bird review phrase. Okay, this is for you, Alexis. You ready?
Oh,
Linda-
Thrill me.
by the way, I just want to mention that like Brent McCracken, he's like for the gospel connection, so I think that kind of gospel coalition.
Immediately why I read that.
Yeah. So I think that kind of explains a bit there. Anyway, moving on.
Linda Cook of our Quad Cities, WHBF TV, Illinois. Turning Red is pandemonium with humor and heart.
Soundboard.
God damn it.
Next.
I want to give her a chance to respond.
That is very Tick Bird.
This one's for you, Robert. I know you were like, I wanted to weigh in on the last one, but I got one better. Corey Coleman of Double Toasted. Pixar's bravest movie yet.
Oh, get bent. Hang on.
Was that actually a reference to Brave? Which I think
Yes.
is one of the there's like what two other Pixar movies with female protagonists?
That's a ridiculous sentiment to claim this movie is brave. Hey, in the current political climate, let's just throw everything we can at this thing to make it review-proof, and never mind the fact that we're not actually making a movie that appeals to as many people because we've so refined the nature of our narrative that we're actually exclusionary, rather than somehow managing to make broad-based appeal about the human condition out of a robot and a cockroach.
Look. Turning Red is about girls turning into red pandas. Brave is about girls turning into bears. Bears are not red pandas. They're a completely different species.
I want you to teach me logic, David. All right. Luke Goodsell of ABC News Australia. The studio arguably hasn't produced anything this affecting since the overlooked Brave.
Go.
Did somebody not cry through the ending of Toy Story 3? I mean, who the hell watched the end of Toy Story 3 and didn't cry?
Everyone did on Earth. The phrase you're looking for, Robert, is "go fuck yourself."
Yes, it is, but I'm not going to say it.
I'm here for you, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, you listen to me, you Australian
piece of shit.
I hope bullfrogs infest.
I like we're doing Mad Libs here.
I hope the bullfrogs infest your country.
Fucking Robert's like, you miserable adjective, and I'm like, bullsack. Go ahead.
We have to do that. We have to do that one of these times now, just for the record.
Go ahead.
No, this is not the most affecting thing they've done since Brave. There's at least 5 movies since Brave more affecting than this one. Bare minimum. You pedantic, pathetic excuse for a film critic.
Carson Tamar of Clappercast.
You know what? No, he's going to hang his hat on the say, well, I said arguably. No, empirically. Dickwad.
Clappercast. The Radulich Broadcasting Network and WGM can't fucking get on this thing, but Clappercast managed to get on.
Didn't you get the link I sent you about applying to get on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, but if it hasn't changed since the last time I looked at it, we don't meet the criteria just yet. We have to get more listeners. We have to get more subscribers on YouTube at the very least.
Yeah.
Carson Tamar of Clappercast. Turning Red doesn't transcend being a kid's film, but for a kid's film, it is fine.
Huh?
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Feel good
Every
about
now
that?
and then, Mark, you pick a review of that I read, and it's like, okay, either I'm not as smart as I think I am, or you purposely pick something that makes my brain hurt.
I think adults will get more out of this film than kids will.
Hagen Osborne of Film Inc. Australia. We're back there again, Robert. One of the year's most heartfelt stories.
The year just started.
It's March.
You failed to capitalize the first letter of your sentence. I care nothing for what you say or do.
You know what really
no
helped you do that?
capitalization, no apostrophe. Yeah.
You know what this review could really use?
I've done that plug already. God damn it.
Your lack of preparation is not my problem.
But boy, could it.
Let's just do Amazon Music now then. Okay. Rip that Band-Aid off.
How about you let me run this podcast there, Shecky?
Oh, come on. I gave you like the perfect setup. It would be a shame to
I have a structure and I'm sticking to it. Walter Chaw of Film Freak Central. The problem with a film like Turning Red is that it's largely indistinguishable films by white creators exoticizing Asian culture and characters.
Oh, someone didn't watch the documentary.
Someone.
Oh, you, pal.
Or read the written and directed by credit.
There's so much, like, that is just factually wrong. Good job, you waste of space.
Well, we certainly know how much research you put into your reviews.
No kidding.
Enough to look up how to properly spell exoticizing. That's about it.
Jordan Rumi of World of Real, REEL. Get it? Do you get it? I found that she took a potentially on paper solid idea and squandered it into semi-plotting and at times derivative plot.
Eh?
That's.
You were looking at your phone, weren't you?
A couple of things here. One, I'm shocked that a B- score registers as a splat. That's not usually the cutoff point for that. Second, no, because if your argument here is that, hey, the idea is solid, but boy, did it become derivative in execution, the entire idea is derivative if you want to get into it from that perspective. So I don't understand your criticism.
Yeah, just right was not engaging enough to distract me from my Twitter feed.
Speaking of derivative, Kevin Carr of Fat Guy at the Movies.
Oh, really?
Who I'm bullying on an ongoing basis.
Every week, and I look, this is one of those things where Mark cuts out this clip and just tweets it at the guy. So this poor guy's like inundated with clips of me yelling at him at how bad at his job he is.
Wait, Richard Roper gave this a negative review?
He certainly did, Ollie. For an update of Teen Wolf, it's perfectly great.
It's not perfectly.
I hate you so much, Kevin Carr. Oh Lord, do I hate you?
It's not perfectly great, and
I don't
it's not
mind
even
Nazis as much hate Kevin Carr. Jesus Christ! Like at least Nazis have a point. Please continue.
Wow.
That was Mark Radulich at the Radulich Broadcasting.
Radulich.com.
You got the Jewish guy to say that the Nazis at least had a point.
At least the Nazis had a point of view, as opposed to Kevin Carr, who was a moon orbiting a planet of nothingness.
Oh my god.
Look, this is not really an updated Teen Wolf in that particular respect. You clearly haven't seen that movie in any appreciable length of time. And it's not perfectly great. So, no. Yeah, you know what? I think Roper's got a point. Like, I'm just reading his blurb. I'm not sure I agree with his overall score, but I'd have to, that's enough of a nuanced take that we're getting in the blurb that I would have to read the whole thing to really kind of parse it out, and that's not what we do here. But suffice to say, noting that there's problems with the script and that the lead is occasionally more irritating than anything else is not inaccurate.
No, that's fine, but I don't know if you've met many 13-year-old girls. They're more irritating than most of us would like them to be. So I'll allow it. Last one, and this kind of goes into the Vox issue from earlier. Vincent Mancini of Uprocks, that vaunted periodical. I think the panda might be a metaphor. Yeah.
I
What did you
really
just throw, Mark?
I threw my phone.
Hang on, I'm trying to find it.
You
How much
scrolled
further down
past
did
it.
you-
It was on that same page.
Oh, hang on.
It's just above your grandfather.
Oh, really?
Oh
It
my
didn't
God,
back up.
Robert.
It didn't back. It wouldn't back up on the page. I hit the back
I'm
button on
done.
my
I'm
mouse.
done
and
with
it doesn't-
this.
Okay, fair enough.
I saw it, and there
Yeah,
was a
stuff.
question mark after that. So I think the panda is a metaphor? Question mark?
Yes.
Oh, how
You
cute
idiot.
boy you are.
All right.
You absolute idiot.
Oh, you're so sharp. Careful you don't cut yourself.
It's a good thing you work for Uprocks and not an actual, institution of.
For the
literature.
record, another sign that the publication you work for is trash and you've wasted your life. There's
Multiple
at least
X's.
more than one X in the name.
That's right. There should always be 3. That's when you know you got quality. Speaking of
No,
which,
because you wrote for one of those, Mark, and I know that you wasted your life at that period of time.
yeah, you ain't kidding, Jack. Hey, speaking of XXX, Alexis Hejna sells jewelry. Why don't you tell them about it?
Well, that was one hell of a segue.
He's trying to
He used
trying
mine.
to open up
Way.
he's trying to open up a new market for you, I guess.
I've worked one Yowie convention in my life. Thank you very much.
More
I'm
than
getting,
enough.
I'm
I
getting a
imagine.
great, great never again vibe off of that statement.
I was across from a girl who was sketching a 6-foot picture of David Tennant and Matt Smith standing in front of the TARDIS in their underwear. The title of the picture was "It's Bigger on the Inside."
Rrrr.
I actually want to dock points for the title of that. Like, really?
I actually own a couple of her prints. She's an amazing. I think it's pastel. I think it's pastel on black. I think that's what she uses. Her work's really good.
Are you still on Amazon? Because I can't find your page suddenly.
I've been having problems with our Amazon shop, unfortunately. Amazon has decreed that apparently a lot of items need perfectly white backgrounds in order to be posted. And many of our items, unfortunately, have kind of grayish backgrounds because even though I use a white background, I manipulate the lighting and everything. So I actually need to go through and fix like a lot of my photos to get on there. But yeah, according to this, let me double check here. Hang on a second.
I have your Instagram up. That'll do. Go ahead and do your plug.
Yeah. No, I've still got some stuff up there. It's just being weighed down by everything else. All right. So, yes, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We make handmade jewelry by upcycling game pieces. We're currently getting ready to hit the road here. Going to be heading to Lexington Comic and Toy Fairs. It's our first convention of the year. Very excited. Cannot wait to get there. After that, we're going to be working Planet Comic-Con here in Kansas City, then off to Vision Con in Springfield. Of course, our shops are fully stocked on Etsy, and they are available on Handmade at Amazon, even if Amazon's being kind of a pain in the butt right now to navigate. I will get that figured out as soon as possible and get the items back up there and more available very soon. In the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our Twitter page is up there. You can always find new pictures of our products and, of course, pictures of our fuzzy little interns, as I call them, otherwise known as Cleo and Eddie. So, again, if you're in yep, there's Cleo's cameo. That's her approving of the wire wrap necklaces as something green for St. Patrick's Day.
Looks like that. Is that food look?
I didn't have food.
Yeah.
No. So, yes, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you can't find us on Amazon, go ahead and check us out on Etsy. That is Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
It's a little ways out. The next trivia that's going to be going up is wrestling in a week or so. But after that, the trivia after that is going to be splitting the difference between Doctor Strange and Fantastic Beasts. It's all going to be about wizards and wizarding. Or no, what was it? Wizards and Magic. That's what we called it.
Yep, we're going to be doing, in addition to Doctor Strange, Dr. Fate, Harry Potter, Dungeons and Dragons, World of Warcraft, all that kind of fun stuff.
So if anyone wants to, if you want to jump on the trivia show, if you want to knock Dave off his pedestal, because outside of wrestling, Dave's been on every single one of these. He's like that is his podcast now.
I've been on a few.
So if anyone wants to be on this Wizards one for the month of I think the end of April. Go ahead and contact either Alexis or Jesse. Yeah.
Yep. Find us on Facebook and Twitter. Let us know that you want to play.
All right. Thank you, Alexis, for coming out and talking about Turning Red. I will set you free to die in the manner you see fit.
Sounds good. I am going to go off, get ready for Lexington, and go get some more pads and tampons.
And pay extra for it.
Naturally. Have fun reviewing Executive Meddling, the movie.
Oh, I'm gonna nuke this thing from orbit just to be sure.
All right. So that brings us to our second feature of this double Damn You Hollywood. Cheaper by the Dozen, a 2022 American family comedy film. It's a remake of the 1950 and 2003 films of the same name, which were inspired by the real-life Gilbreth family, and the semi-autobiographical account of their lives is written in the 1948 novel Cheaper by the Dozen by Frank Bunker Gilbreth Jr. and his sister Ernestine Gilbreth Carey. The film is directed by Gail Lerner in her feature-length directorial debut that she got paid $1.50 to do.
Not just her feature-length film directorial debut. I can't find a single thing this woman has done.
Yeah, they might have. They might have gotten her out of a homeless shelter.
I do not jest, and don't call me Shirley.
With a script co-written by Kenya Barris and Jenifer Rice-Genzuk Henry. Produced by Walt Disney Pictures, Cheaper by the Dozen had its world premiere at the El Capitan Theater on March 16, 2022, and was released on Disney Plus on March 18th. It received negative reviews from critics, though it received some praise for touching on subjects of blended families and race religions in the most awkward way possible. Like a brief table setting, David, have you seen any of the Cheaper by the Dozens before?
No, this is my first one.
Oh, good. Me too.
For the sake of the theoretical IP, the 2003 one starring Steve Martin and Bonnie Hunt is really good.
I got a sequel, so I assumed it was pretty decent.
That was
a sequel?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it did.
Okay. I know Father of the Bride got 2 movies. I didn't know that.
There is a Cheaper by the Dozen too. Yes.
Okay.
The Cheaper by the Dozen also, and I have to say this because there's a decent enough chance Pat Mullen watches this. Hilary Duff's in the Cheaper by the Dozen movie, and I
believe he did mention that. Though I must say, after I finished this movie and Disney Plus recommended the Steve Martin Cheaper by the Dozen, as you might also be interested in, I cannot fault the logic in the algorithm on this one.
I almost watched it. So I watched this as soon as I got home Friday night from the Dominican Republic, and I watched it while I was updating the W2M network site.com. And then it ends and it goes right into the Steve Martin one. Now at this point it's like midnight, and I'm like, I really need to get to bed, but I kind of wanted to watch it to compare it. And I'm like, no, I'm sure there's no comparing the two other than just the most loosest of structures of both movies.
The conflicts in that movie are so much better.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more organic. You have much more talented actors playing off of each other. If you've seen this and you haven't seen the Steve Martin one, go watch the Steve Martin one. It's actually good.
All right, I might make a opportunity to do that. Let's get into the plot here. Let's get into how the story goes. Shut up! The Bakers are...
I'm gonna mock this thing every step of the way.
The Bakers are a blended family that began with Paul Baker and his wife Kate, who together had daughters Ella and Harley, and their adopted son Haresh after their friends died in a car accident. Kate eventually divorced Paul, but they remain friends with Kate, acting as an occasional, though slightly inattentive babysitter.
Because we just decided to close that chapter in our lives.
Sure. Zoe married football player Dom Clayton and had daughter Deja and son DJ. Due to Dom's celebrity life, Zoe divorced him and took custody of the kids. Paul met Zoe after
they just decided to close that chapter of their lives.
Paul met Zoe after she visited his small restaurant and suggested that he make the entire menu breakfast themed all day. The two eventually got married, expanded the restaurant, renamed it Baker's Breakfast, and had 2 sets of twins, Luca and Luna, and Bronx and Bailey. Dom continues to be active in Deja and DJ's lives, which slightly intimidates Paul, as he was rarely there to begin with. While Deja prepares for her basketball scholarship, DJ feels that he connects with Paul more than Dom and would rather speak with him. Paul gets a meeting with a large company to expand his restaurant. He succeeds and has his family sauce sold on shelves. He decides to use the money to move the family from Los Angeles to Calabasas in a bigger house in a gated community. Upon arrival, Zoe begins to feel the effects of racial profiling, especially after meeting her neighbor Anne. Paul suddenly gets a call informing him that his sister Rachel has checked into rehab, forcing him to take in his nephew Seth, who has a habit of being a thief. Seth bonds with Haresh when he discovers that he is being picked on at the new school.
I've got a habit of felonies.
Just
a habit.
Just as a small tick I have of stealing. New school because of his ethnicity and teaches him to defend himself. Deja begins seeing a boy named Chris and sneaks out of the house to see him. Paul finds himself having to travel to look for new places to expand his restaurant. The investors, Melanie and Michelle, also insist on altering some of the business ideals to cut costs. He starts to miss out on being with his family, which upsets Zoe, as this was the reason she divorced Dom. On DJ's birthday, Paul rushes to get home. During the party, things start to get out of hand as DJ changes his look to impress a girl.
I consider this to be out of hand.
Yeah. Haresh and Seth are suspended from school for a week after starting a fight with kids who bullied Haresh, and Anne profiles Zoe's family for a series of recent break-ins. Upon Paul arriving, Deja reveals that she quit the basketball team and that the entire family has been unhappy since arriving in Calabasas. Dom, feeling that Zoe can no longer handle their kids, announces he wants full custody of Deja and DJ. Harley and Ella accuse Seth of the break-ins after Haresh pointed out that he saw him stealing from the restaurant cash register, though he returned it and he angrily leaves. Upon realizing their mistake, the Bakers, Kate, and Dom all go out and find Seth. They apologize and admit that he is part of the family, and he rejoins them like you do. Back at home, Paul and Dom discuss their different upbringings, while Paul will never know what it's like to be at a disadvantage.
Oh, can I do it?
Sure.
Message.
Yep. Dom has to understand that I'm a black man in a white man's world. Sorry. Dom has to understand that being away from his kids has made him distant, and then he needs to be more attentive. Realizing how much his family means to him, Paul breaks his deal with the company so that he can, like you do, so that he can run the restaurant himself.
They were so understanding.
The Bakers move back to Los Angeles
lawyers ever. Sorry.
And buy a new house while having dinner, or rather breakfast, at the newly named Baker's Dozen restaurant. Excuse me.
Get it?
Baker's Dozen breakfast. My God. Paul reveals the design of the sauce bottle has changed to reflect the family, Seth included. All right, David, how much did you love Cheaper by the Dozen in 2022?
I didn't love it at all, but I didn't hate it at all. It's just kind of one of those movies that is just so... Oh, I think Jesse just won the podcast.
Jesse, I will find you.
It's not hard. He never leaves his house, except to fondle people's junk around the neighborhood.
Yeah, like as Alexis pointed out in the first half, it's basically executive notes the movie. It's there. It fills up space. It was made for a bottle of Jack and a pack of cigs. It really did feel like the Disney Channel movie of the week, TV movie of the week, I should say.
Insult to TV. That's an insult to how good those things used to be.
Yeah, I can't really hate it because there's just not enough to hate here. It's not worth the effort. It's just it was overall fairly bland, forgettable cash in. The cast was too big. I understand it's called Cheaper by the Dozen, so we just get the old classic. The little kids act like little adults. Isn't that funny? It's like, yeah, I've seen this in every sitcom,
and it's never a good idea.
Yeah, it's. The bits where the film worked is I think when the families actually did more serious family stuff. When it tried to be funny, it just kind of fell flat. But I love the bit where the dad character goes to tuck the twins into bed and it's hard to sleep now because your room's so far away. Yes, this is a good thing. It means you'll grow up into well-adjusted adults.
I didn't hate the movie. It's trash. Don't get me wrong. It's not a well-made movie, but I didn't hate it because I knew that it was going to be cheap, made for TV fare. It is, Disney is sort of leading the charge in disposable content from the Book of Boba Fett to this to Home Sweet Home Alone. It's just they are churning out trash and they are leading the pack. Netflix spends a lot and Amazon spend a lot of money to buy some quality, some not so much quality, but they are going to festivals and they are going to places where films are featured, and they are buying other people's projects, good, bad, or indifferent. Disney is a factory, just churning out streamable content as cheap as they can make it with as many recognizable brands as they can find.
I think some of the actors are trying. It's just
nobody went into this trying. Gabrielle Union is a solid actress. She didn't go into this but it's a paycheck. Zach Braff, same thing. It's well, what else am I doing these days? I'm going to say one positive thing about the movie, and I understand that, this is so Robert likes to kid me about my having to, plead to him that the plight of the black man is a story that resonates and is something to be considered and thought upon. And Robert's like, please gag me with a spoon. I get it, but I'm going to do that here.
You are gonna regret this.
If you would like to go get a sandwich, be my guest. But
no, I'm just telling you, you're gonna regret it.
Look, it's done in the most hackneyed, awkward, ham-fisted way. But I at least
where did this come from?
I at least like the fact that there was a conversation between Dom and Zach Braff's
It was not a
character.
Conversation. Don't give it that much dignity.
Okay, it was a lecture. I like the fact that they took a moment to have a lecture about the differences between how Black people perceive their perception by the world and how a white person raising Black children would relate to them. And there is a debate to be had about that, and there are almost staunch religious beliefs in the sense of Black people believing that white people will never understand their struggle, and they feel like that's a disservice to Black children, from a parental role, and that only other Black men and Black women can truly impart to them the wisdom they need to suffer the slings and arrows of a world that often works against them. I mean, look, was it addressed, deftly? No, absolutely not. But I at least like the fact that it was said. By the same token, Zach Braff saying, "But I love these children. And I've been their father, and no, I will never be able to relate to them as a Black man who has suffered, but I don't have to. I relate to them as a father. I impart the wisdom of fatherhood, and that counts for something." Where the movie lacks any real conflict, at least there was that. And it was only for a moment, and forgive me for, being easily taken in by that, because that is something that appeals to me. That is something I want to talk about. That is something I want to hear talked about. Gabrielle Union is a big nothing in this. She's a very pretty lady and a very nice actress, very talented. But, Robert and I talked about this last night privately, how she's just the most understanding, most wonderful, most patient woman ever. I mean, and she knew how to use a lightsaber in the Force immediately. It was
and the only thing she had to learn was that, what, gosh darn it, I'm awesome, and as soon as I take off the stupid inhibitor you put on my neck, I become the most overpowered thing in the.
Yeah, I mean, I think in an attempt to write her,
writers have lost the ability to write compelling female characters because they're all worshiping at the altar of feminism. I'm just gonna say it.
Well, I
will, in slight opposition to that, say that when she did have to do everything on her own, she did struggle. Not hardcore struggle, but you could kind of see that she's like, I am so done with this.
Here's the thing: I think they're almost afraid to make unlikable women characters, at least in a role that we're supposed to cheer for them. I think that the nuance in writing a character you're supposed to cheer for is they can be fallible. They should be fallible. Therein lies the dramatic tension. And the problem is she's not fallible in this. She's infallible. She's perfect.
There has to be something that the character overcomes that is purely internal. And usually, if you're a good writer, that relates to the external conflict going on. Tony Stark has to learn to overcome his hubris and his self-centeredness. And this represents itself as he goes throughout his arc throughout the various movies. It never fully goes away because it's part of his character, but this is what he confronts. And it relates to whatever he happens to be. And you find a way to make it relevant to whatever he happens to be fighting externally at the time. But the internal struggle is more important in some respects because that's what makes the character relatable. when your character's arc is them coming to the conclusion that, you know what, I'm awesome. Unless you're telling a story about someone who's dealing with deep-seated depression.
I don't really think that was her quote unquote arc, though. She
She doesn't have an arc. She has nothing.
Most characters don't have an arc in this one.
I'm speaking generally.
Okay, fair enough.
At the moment, I'm speaking a bit more generally.
Yeah.
That's a terrible way to write a character. Here, you created a character who is understanding of her husband's eccentricities. She is imminently clairvoyant about the future. Honey, I don't think this is a good idea. Okay, well, if you don't think it's a good idea, I won't go through with it because I need your support. Well, I'll support you no matter what. Great, then I'm going to do it. Mark, you're married.
I am.
How does that conversation really go?
Not well.
Yeah, pro advice for all you guys out there who are about to get married or newly married. Your wives like to be seriously consulted and taken seriously.
They like to feel like they have, a vote.
Yes.
And
you should give them one.
And when things do not go your way, but rather the way they predicted, do they let you off with "but I support you anyway"? Or do they rub your face in it just a little?
Oh, no, they rub your face in it.
Yeah, not just a little bit.
Yeah, no.
It's
a full-on kick in the balls.
I'm trying to be at least a little bit diplomatic there. But
nope.
Yeah.
Wouldn't trade for anything in the world.
Hey, I know you want to do your rant here. Let me quick finish. It's cheap, disposable trash movie. It has a few moments. There were moments that made me chuckle. There were moments that I was like, okay, I at least like what they're trying to say here. I like what they're pointing at. But overall, I mean, it's one of those where if you're not thinking about what you're watching and you're just wanting to kill 90 minutes of your day, it's harmless. But I feel like maybe we should strive for something better than mostly harmless. And when we create movies, but by the same token, and we've talked about this a million times, I really don't want to belabor the point. We're in an age now where we have to create so much content. It can't all be quality. The B movie used to be something that you would find at this, convenience store or, in a dollar bin, or in the back of the Tower Records. Now there's so much space for B and C and D movies that the Red Letter Media guys just did not one but two videos on the slew of cheap Bruce Willis movies that are out there, and he's not the only one doing them. I think I read an article today, I actually saw it on Twitter, that Nicolas Cage admitted that he did a whole bunch of B movies to pay off debts and to keep his mom out of a psychiatric institution, which I then retweeted to Whitney Seibold.
He had all these tax problems with the IRS, so there was a period of years where his policy was, if your check will clear, I will be in your movie.
Right. So my point is that maybe once upon a time when this was a more controlled, smaller pond, it has now become an ocean because the infinite shelf that is streaming. And I don't have the energy to get mad at Disney for making garbage. People watch garbage, they will supply garbage. It really does come down to the audience. If the audience rejects stuff like this, and to that point, what was the highest, most watched movie in Netflix history? Red Notice, which was trash. So until we as a community of film watchers at home break the habit of watching trash, they're going to continue to make trash because people will watch it. And then once they've watched it, they, for lack of a better phrase, they've already got your money. All right, Robert, we're currently at 1 hour and 33 minutes into this podcast. I believe you have some things you'd like to share with the class.
Sure. Let's start off with this. So here's the only thing positive I'm going to say about this movie. And I want to make sure I say this because it's true. Zach Braff and Gabrielle Union actually have some really kind of adorable chemistry.
Agreed.
It's the only good thing I can say about this movie, but in the interest of fairness, it's true. I almost would have preferred they not have the kids around. I was more interested in how those two played off of each other than anything else. So
I thought when Zach Braff did actual like parenting serious stuff, he was
Yeah.
pretty good. When he did the goofy slapstick stuff, it was pretty painful.
He definitely handled Ernest very well.
And he tried with the slapstick. Like I thought he was giving it his best shot. But yeah. Anyway, sorry. Back to you, Robert.
So I hate this movie, not because of itself, not just because of itself.
Flames.
In another minute or two, you'll be able to see the steam rising off of my head. I hate everything this movie represents. I hate your stupid jokes about how, hey, guess what? Oh, hey, you know, these sneakers I bought my somewhat estranged son. They're clearly worth more than your house, right? Buddy, I know what the LA housing market looks like right now. That's a $1.3 million home minimum.
The one at the beginning of the movie.
Yes. Pull your bottom lip over your head and swallow if you think that's funny. You utter waste of space. How dare you diminish the entire profession of writing with your shit? That is terrible. Second, for your overly sanitized, oh, isn't this so relatable bunch of crap. You have first of all, you have the children that act like adults. This is always the dumbest thing in the world. Always. Don't do it. Never do this. Ever. If that means less child actors get hired, then hey, maybe we should stop foisting a potentially traumatic profession and entire career process and path onto children. Just throwing it out there. Your big relatable thing at the beginning in this bare minimum $1.3 million house is these idiot children riding around in safety equipment, and one of them spills a bowl of oranges. Isn't this the most relatable thing ever for how children will wreck your house? A single bowl of oranges gets spilled. You pathetic, preachy attempt at writing. That's all that is. No one agrees with this. No one who has children agrees that this is how they behave. No one with children agrees that this is terrible. You have created the most sanitized, overly focused, grouped, sterile, banal, vapid, self-absorbed pile of shit imaginable. And then you have the temerity at the end to have your lead character go, I would rather be broke and happy with my family than make lots of money.
But they make lots of money anyway.
Clearly, these are already very successful people. If you have a restaurant that survives its first year and a half in operations, guess what percentage of the population of that profession you exist in? Take a guess. It's small. And these disingenuous hack writers who have achieved a degree of success, whether or not they deserve it based on their talent, to then stand here and pontificate about the nature of what makes people happy, and they always resolve that it's not money after you've achieved wild success in the financial field, it's the most disingenuous, insulting, condescending bullshit you could possibly spew out. To say nothing of your ham-fisted, hackneyed, pathetic attempts at handling race relations, because of course you do, because that's all you know how to write. The two writers for this are primarily known for Blackish and Grownish, and sadly, all this thing did was induce groans. This is everything wrong with contemporary network television. This is everything wrong with the entire medium and profession of writing. This is damn near everything wrong with the ethos that most entertainment companies operate under. This should be stuck in a grease trap, set on fire, and buried, never to be spoken of again.
And and with that, I believe we can go to the Who Doggy, the critical review.
Are you ready? I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right. The critical review is brought to you by Amazon Music Unlimited. Yes, sir, Bob. For a free 30-day trial of the Amazon Music Unlimited, head to getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. Make sure you complete the sign-up process. For your free unlimited trial, you can stream all you want, all 800 billion zillion songs. You can listen to House of Pain over and over and over again. Hey, you can hang out with me, Robert, and Jesse tomorrow and review the new Sabaton. And if you like that, you can stream all the Sabaton tanks on Amazon Music Unlimited. And you can check out their entire catalog and you can listen to all the tank music. So again, that's getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. Robert, if you would be so kind as to put the Cheaper by the Dozen score up on screen again. I have another tab open. For some odd reason on my Chrome, Rotten Tomatoes isn't working, but when I pulled it up on Firefox, it works just fine. So I can read it off my thing. I just want you to put it up on screen. But yeah, this Robert's not alone. It has a 36% tomato meter reading, but a 29% audience score.
Still too high.
Well, that's fine, but it's not like it was like a 36 tomato meter and like 100% audience score or anything like that. No, even people who watch this feel similar to Robert. Cheaper by the Dozen adds some modern twist to an oft-adapted story, but fresh laughs are few and far between. Yes, sir, Bob. So let's see there were 28 reviews here. Let's see if anyone actually liked this thing. Hey, Matt Fowler of IGN Movies.
All critics.
The updates made to Cheaper by the Dozen work to better explain how such a large family exists and functions, while the episodic chapter book quality of the storytelling serves the big ensemble well.
Oh, for the love of... Hang on, don't share yet. I need to.
Oh, God damn it! All right,
I'm just telling it that it can collect ad revenue. Hang on.
Okay. Anything you to say about that one?
Refresh
before I move on. Okay.
Only that if your only possible explanation for a large family is that it's blended, you do not know any Catholics or members of my faith.
Peter Martin of everythingbuthorror.com. It's in the latter portions of the film that the family's diversity begins to bear dramatic fruitage. Although still handled lightly, several issues are addressed in a mature manner that reflects modern-day concerns and realities.
So they said the word racism, 10 out of 10.
You, sir, are just the worst.
Hey, speaking of the worst, Robert, the future former Mrs. Winfree, Lola Lamb Chops weighing in. Tanya Lamb of Lola Lamb Chops at the heart of
this is why you are so wrong about our potential romantic relationship. No.
At the heart, maybe you can change her. Maybe you can fix her. No. At the heart of Cheaper by the Dozen is family.
No.
It tackles important topics while weaving in humor and love. It never forgets its target audience and remains a family-friendly film.
Did you just misplace one of her Fast and the Furious reviews?
Maybe.
I assume. That's the only thing I can assume about this. Like, you just copy and pasted that over and then just did a search and replace for a specific title for like certain keywords. Like, that's all you did here. No, like the family dynamic is pathetically weak in this movie.
Yeah, not a lot of humor, and it doesn't so much tackle important topics as in like just wave at them from across the street.
The closest we get is having a black man lecture a white man. Like, that's not engaging a topic. It's not engaging a discussion.
Apologize.
It's one guy going, "You'll never understand," and the other guy goes, "Yeah, but you're a bad father."
Hey, this is actually a rotten review, but I'm going to read it anyway because it's Robert's favorite periodical. Courtney Howard of Variety, top critic. The new adaptation's noteworthy commentary on poignant, timely issues is often eclipsed by predictability, superficial character development, and inconsistent pacing.
Yeah,
also, another 99.9% of the runtime.
For the record, I didn't talk about this because I didn't get too deep into the craft, but the pacing on this thing is crap. It is a terrible movie to watch just from how it's structured. No, there is no noteworthy commentary on poignantly or timely issues. What the hell is the matter with you?
Edward Douglas of The Weekend Warrior. It gets corny at times, but it's also frequently cute and even quite charming. So it did eventually grow on me.
If that what you're worried about growing on you is the fungus on your brain if you gave this a fresh review.
Kate Sanchez of But Why Though?
Good question.
A geek community.
I got a community for you.
Yeah, it's in my shorts. Community by the Dozen is a fine and charming family film that aims for social commentary in some capacity, even with its faults. A lot of jokes and a pretty stellar leading couple.
Okay. The jokes have to land for you to consider them jokes. Right? I'm not going crazy. These have to actually be funny.
Yes, it helps.
And they're not. They're just not. You have a kid at one point after this crappy drag race is discovered. Go, Mom, I was in bed the whole time, with about that level of line reading obviousness. Gabrielle Union then turns to this poor abused child and goes, Kid, you're still wearing all of the safety gear from riding your bike. And he goes, but this is my sleeping helmet. Again, with the director in the back with a giant cue card. Hey, no. All
right, last one, and then we're going to get out of here. Josh Wilding of comicmovie.com. Zach Braff steals the show alongside Gabrielle Union and Cheaper by the Dozen.
He does not steal it. It is given to him, and he is not able to hot potato it away fast enough.
He gets an A for effort.
A remake that's in equal parts hilarious and heartwarming, all
Which
while
is to say none of either.
Yeah, that actually is a true statement. Just maybe not in the way they were trying to communicate.
It's true.
All while delivering a powerful message alongside plenty of big laughs. It's near perfect family film. You know, I'm going to go ahead and say that maybe people who write for comic book blogs shouldn't review movies. I'm just saying.
You do not have a family.
I'm noticing
if you tried to sit them down and make them watch this, they would leave you.
Yeah, I watched this one on my own. I was going to make my kids watch this with me. And then, like I said, we all got back from DR and I was like, you know what? I'm doing this because I can't get out of my own way when it comes to podcast structure. Let me just sit and suffer in silence by myself.
And you don't want to have to fix the hole in the floor that Jonas is going to pace into it.
I meant to say that before with Turning Red. He didn't like the first half of it because it was too awkward. Like it was like for him, it was like cringeworthy. And I think a lot of it was his reaction to like the May character and that stuff.
Oh, he is at the prime age for girls are icky.
Yeah, you ain't kidding there. All right, folks, that is our reviews of Turning Red and Cheaper by the Dozen 2022. Please like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube page. And if you're looking for just a traditional audio, we are on all your podcatchers everywhere, all the time, even on Christmas. So that's Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, anything that you can whatever podcast catcher you're using, we're there. Please subscribe to our feed. Check out all the great content here on W2M Network. So just a quick read on a couple of things David is doing in the future. I think May is all David Wright all the time. Yeah. But Dave will be back this Thursday for Disenchantment Part 4, as will Robert. On April 21st, we will be reviewing. Finally, I owed him one.
Did you finish? Did you hang on? Did you finish Disenchantment Part 4?
Not yet. So I have like 3 episodes left.
It's not over. They're going to squeeze more out of this.
I believe you. We will be on April 21st. We will be reviewing Star Trek Lower Deck Season 1. On May 3rd, he and allegedly the Talk the Keki guys and Robert and I will be doing another split Damn You Hollywood, this time for both the animated features Bubble, which will be on Netflix, and Belle, which should be somewhere streaming someplace at some point.
Allegedly, it will be on the internet.
Yes. David, I have you down for Doctor Strange. Yep. I have you down for Downton Abbey. Yep. First, the On Trial for the first one, and then the Damn You Hollywood for the second one. Robert, I don't have you down for that. I just have David. But if you wanted to do Downton Abbey too, obviously you're more than welcome.
I appreciate the fact that you know me well enough that you don't have to ask that question.
And moving on. He will be on for Picard Season 2, May 19th, and the On Trial for Top Gun, finally, Chris Bailey, on May 23rd. And then the last one I'm going to read here, he will be on the Damn You Hollywood for Top Gun Maverick. So that's all the stuff David is doing. Robert Winfree writes about wrestling and MMA and only some of those things at gunpoint.
Yeah, some. I cover professional wrestling a few nights a week over at 411mania.com, AEW's Dark Elevation on Monday, MLW's Thursday show, and WWE SmackDown on Friday. Boy, that show's been a slog lately.
You go quick.
So if you're interested in that, you can find me over in the Wrestling Zone at 411mania.com. Two of those are reports after the fact. I do the live coverage for SmackDown, and I occasionally get press ganged into other live coverage. I'm dreading the possibility of being called for WrestleMania.
You should join our live stream if you're not.
I might. I very well might. I also cover mixed martial arts for 411mania.com. This last week was UFC on ESPN Plus 62. The UFC returned to the O2 Arena in London. Darn good card. If you want my full report, it's in the MMA Zone. That also features clips of all the finishes that were made available via the various Twitter accounts and whatnot. So if you missed a great spinning back elbow knockout, it's up there, and you should really go check that one out. I also host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, so if you're interested in my thoughts on mixed martial arts or that sport in general, give it a listen. It's card reviews, card previews, and news of the week, such as there is, depending on the week. So wherever you're listening to this particular podcast, you can find me there doing that one. Just plug in the name of that particular just plug in that name in your search engine and you'll find it. So thank you very much for all of the support that show gets. Thank you all very much for the support you give this show, including indulging my occasional pro wrestling style rant promos. I appreciate the ability to release the pressure valve on occasion. That movie damaged my creativity. I told Mark this. I'm going to just say it publicly. I watched that sterile, facile, flaccid facsimile of creativity and couldn't write. It actually damaged my ability to do anything. So I was so desperate for something after that sanitized, fake, artificial construct of entertainment that I started watching World War II documentaries as an antidote to reinvigorate my connection with the real and what it means to be part of human and the human experience, because all of that is utterly devoid from that soulless, pathetic cash grab.
And on that note, we will be back next week. It'll be Robert and I. We will be doing yet another split Damn You Hollywood, this time for Deep Water on Hulu, starring Ben Affleck, and Windfall on Netflix, which has been getting some interesting reviews. So stay tuned for that. Until then, he's David Wright. That's Robert Winfree. I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.